Well, let's talk about air pressure and why it's so important and how it impacts us. First of all, let me define air pressure. There's air all around us, right? We might not be able to see it, but we know it's around because, well, we're breathing it in, right? Well, not only is there air all around us, there is air pushing down on us. That is called air pressure. So think about this for a minute. Have you ever been to the top of a mountain where, let's say you go to Colorado and you go to 10,000 feet, suddenly it's a little harder to breathe, right? It takes a while to kind of get acclimated because there is less air pushing down on you. There is less air pressure at 10,000 feet than there is at the surface or at sea level, right? And so that really gives you a good idea of what air pressure is. Same thing in an airplane. Even though we pressurize the airplane cabin so we're comfortable, right? So we can survive at flying at 30,000 feet, but your ears still pop, right? When you go up in an airplane. That's because your body is adjusting to the lower air pressure. Let's flip that for a minute. What about higher air pressure? Well, have you ever been to the bottom of the deep end of a pool? What happens there? Your ears pop, right? Same type of an effect, but for higher air pressure. So air pressure goes up and down, not only if you go to the top of a mountain or the bottom of a pool, but also with weather patterns. That's why we have the big blue H's and the big red L's on the weather map, right? So we show this for several reasons. Number one is to talk about storm systems coming in, but also I've heard from so many of our viewers that say specifically when air pressure really drops or it really gets low, people start to feel it in the form of migraines or joint pain. I've even heard from doctors and nurses that say when big storm systems come in, more babies are born. Kind of makes sense, right? Because there's less air pressing down on you. So let's talk more specifically about this. First of all, the numbers that you're looking at here. These are in inches of mercury. So we use a barometer to measure the air pressure, right? Now, I want you to remember this right here. Really put this into your memory. 29.92 inches of mercury. That is the standard sea level air pressure, okay? So that's the average sea level air pressure. That's your baseline, all right? So if you go really high above that, which sometimes we do, 30.30, 30.40 inches of mercury, that can have an effect on some folks in terms of the human body, but I really hear about it when the air pressure drops below about 29.6 inches of mercury. I'd say around there, and it really starts to drop more than that. That's when folks really start to feel it. And again, it's going to affect people differently. Maybe some folks are just kind of foggy, don't feel right, hear a lot of joint pain, migraines, things like that when the air pressure really starts to drop. And by the way, those comments that I get on social media, and I get a lot of them, they're really helpful because that helps us as meteorologists to be able to kind of bring this more to the forefront. Now, we show inches of mercury on television. Behind the scenes, we use units of millibars, kind of like going from Fahrenheit to Celsius. But again, we show inches of mercury on TV. The big point being here that you kind of want to have that 29.92 inches of mercury as your baseline here. So that gives you an idea then that we're really dropping low here when you're getting to 29.45 inches of mercury. Now, I'll take you through time here, and you see the area of low pressure moving on. Now, of course, from a weather pattern standpoint, or sensible weather, as we talk about on television, low pressure systems often cause rain, snow, or thunderstorms, right? Causes converging and rising air. So it's causing sometimes active weather here as well. And so that's what we look for as meteorologists, in addition to those pressure drops. Now, in addition to this, air pressure drops often cause a big change, or what we call pressure gradient, or change in the air pressure. What does that cause? That causes wind. So that's why when the air pressure really drops, you may notice it get pretty windy, because that is the cause for wind, a big change in air pressure. I mean, look at this forecast up here from Marquette, Michigan, 29.38 inches of mercury. Then as we go through time, see the difference here? As the low moves out, now the air pressure is starting to moderate back here in parts of Minnesota, Iowa, and Missouri, getting closer to that average sea level pressure. So typically it doesn't stay low for very long, but it's important to keep tabs, especially if you're sensitive to those big drops or big changes in air pressure, sometimes even rises in air pressure. It's important to stay up to date, keep looking at the barometer, look at it on apps that you have, and keep tabs here on television and on apps as well to make sure that you know kind of what's coming here. If there's a big storm system coming, that may mean big dips in area of low pressure. But I'll caution you as well, not every storm carries huge areas of low pressure. Sometimes they're just smaller drops. So it doesn't necessarily mean the biggest storm per se doesn't necessarily carry with it the biggest area of low pressure. Many times the center of the low may stay to the north, but yet a cold front will bring through a big line of thunderstorms or something like that. So don't correlate the biggest areas of low pressure with the biggest storminess factor. It's more, where is the center of the area of low pressure or the center of that storm system going? But again, it all goes back to how important air pressure or that air pushing down on you is.